Hey, everybody, it's the Comedians in Quarantine podcast. This is Casey McLean, your host. Today's guest is Noah Savage. Noah Savage can be found on Twitter and Instagram at YoIt'sTheSav. That's in the show notes of this podcast. He has a podcast called The World According to Noah Savage. He is a comedian in New York and an ESPN broadcaster. He's also tested positive for COVID-19. He did a really good episode of his podcast about that, and I suggest you go check that out. We talked about it some on here also. One thing I will say, I forgot to ask Noah a question, and I spliced in the audio and the video at the end, so you're going to hear a rough edit, me asking a new question. If you're watching the video, you're going to see a rough edit. What I've learned in this, more than anything else I've learned during the COVID-19 process, is that nobody gives a shit about audio and video quality on podcasts. They'll listen anyway. So I'm not going to, it could become an editing nightmare. I only have room for a couple nightmares in my life right now. So please enjoy this podcast with Noah Savage. It's really good, I think. I think he's really interesting. Check out his podcast, support Noah. And hopefully maybe I'll try to get his wife on the podcast also, Alyssa Wolf. But if not, check out, she has a podcast also. Check them both out on Twitter. Thank you, and please enjoy this conversation. Here we go. Now it's for real. How are you doing? You're a New York comedian and basketball broadcaster.
Yeah, man. I'm doing great. I mean, considering I've had it already.
Yeah, you caught coronavirus.
Yeah, and all in all, I'm like feeling kind of like grateful that I'm through having it, and a lot of doctors are saying like I could be immune for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel a little bit invincible? Because there's like the stories in Germany where they're just letting people go back to work, go back to normal life.
Yeah, dude, and I think like they're gonna do that. I think there's gonna be this weird, like, I read a opinion article about it where they said like potentially in New York they're gonna get antibody tests, and you're gonna like have a freaking certificate and be like, no, I already had it, I'm good. And there's gonna be like these two classes of people where like there'll be like people who had corona will be like raging in bars, and everybody else will be like, peeking through their blinds like, I wish I could go down to that bar, but I can't. Like, it's so weird. I mean, the whole thing, and you're in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like we went from I did a set at Subculture, which is a former UCB, on March 2nd, and I taped it because it was like a pretty good crowd. I grab the mic, I cough into it, I make like a corona joke, then I make another corona joke, and then halfway through my set, I'm like giving shit to this guy in the crowd who's like not giving me enough energy, even though I'm doing well. And I'm like, what do you have, corona? Like, I literally make like 4 corona jokes in a 10-minute set, and then like 14 days later, I like test positive for it. Like, what an idiot.
Yeah, my last set was March 11th, and I posted a video of it because I've been trying to, as a comedian now, you have to just post 1 million online videos, right? And the first joke I said when I got on stage was, comedians are going to spread the shit out of corona because we're so desperate to go to places where there's crowds. And then like days later, every comedy club in the country is just completely shut down, and comedy as an industry is gone.
I don't know if you saw the Norm Macdonald set he did in like Florida.
Yeah,
it was pretty late. It was like March 15th or something. And he's just killing by like saying true things. I mean, like, that's kind of like what he does anyway. But he's like, at least you guys are all out here together, packed in real tight. I'm like, just killing. And I'm like, yeah, but seriously though, like that's not a good idea.
So, but you had it, and you were not one of the people that are like, there's this suspicion that there's a bunch of people running around that are completely asymptomatic, never get symptoms or never get severe symptoms, and just have gone through it. That's why we're going to get these antibody tests, because we don't really know who has and hasn't had it. How much of that do you think exists based on the symptoms that you had?
I mean, I have no clue. I would suspect a lot of that exists. I'll take you through the whole story because, so I was in Vegas for my day job and living large. I played poker till 5 a.m. Got up, got one of the IV things, got on a plane, flew back, and then I had 2 games that weekend. So I had a Friday night and a Saturday night, and I was driving up to Boston. Halfway through the drive up to Boston, I had my wife pull over, and I went into a mobile bathroom and just like puked everywhere. I literally was like, I like tipped the guy on the way out. I was like, I'm sorry for what I did in there. I apologize. Like, So of course, like everybody has that thing where they're like, all right, I'm not sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we always have that. Like I just puked in a mobile bathroom, but I'm not sick.
Yeah.
So long story short, that was like February 21st. I had a terrible fever. I was throwing up. I had diarrhea. They thought it was the flu.
Right.
So I was like out of commission for like 8 days. I went back to work for like 4 or 5 days and started to turn the corner. And then my symptoms got like different. I had a dry, non-productive cough.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can
it
you
was
describe
like the
what
urge
that
to
is?
cough was there all the time.
Okay. Because I think everybody's going through this situation. I hear dry cough, and I know that means like no phlegm's coming up.
Yeah.
But was it just that, or is there? I've also heard people say that it feels like you have like a Lego caught in your lungs or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have asthma, so I had not used my like asthma rescue inhaler for like probably 5 years.
Oh wow.
And I was trying to use, I was using it like 5 times a day, and I was having a lot of chest tightness, and that with the like kind of just like like you always have the urge to cough, you know, like you just can't kind of stop coughing. And I was pounding Mucinex, which has a cough suppressant in it. So I called my doctor, and they're like, okay, dude, like, you think you have corona? I'm like, well, I got the dry cough. I have this, I have that. And they're like, you have chest tightness? And I'm like, yeah, all the time. And they're like, all right, come down here. But they still had the attitude of like, yeah, dude, you don't have it. Like, shut up. You know, like they were kind of annoyed that I even got tested.
Yeah.
And it took me 4 days to get the test back. But during those 4 days, the fever and the like terrible aches, the awful exhaustion, and then like the sweats was terrible. Like I would be freezing at 4 in the morning. I'd get in the shower. I'd be freezing. I'd put on like 2 sweatshirts. I'd sweat through those. And I would do that like every 3 hours for about 4 full days. So it was bad. It like wasn't like a good time. But
do you have any concern over there's like kind of the idea that there might be permanent lung damage from this? Have you spent any time considering that? Do you feel like your lung capacity has recovered completely?
Yeah, I feel great. I'm actually like running, and
oh wow, that's encouraging.
you know, in our half an hour out a day, I'm like, I might as well just like try to do something where I'm getting good exercise. So, you know, off the inhaler, like the lungs feel fine. Like I feel 100%.
Yeah. So your wife, so I've seen one stand-up clip of you. I don't know if you know it exists because it's not on a YouTube channel of yours. Did you know that a stand-up clip of you
What is
exists?
it? Oh no, now I'm worried.
Oh, it's from, I assume, Boston. It's City something is in the name. City.
Oh, City Side. Okay, yeah.
Is that in
that's
Boston? Okay.
It's like a 4-minute set or something.
Yeah, and so I have this. First off, I wasn't sure because the podcast episodes of yours that I listen to, I don't think you refer to Alyssa Wolf is your wife.
Yeah, she is.
I don't think you mentioned the fact that you guys are married on those episodes.
That's funny.
And the set that you have, you say, I'm about to get married. And then it's like, I was like, oh no, like I don't know how to approach this. Then you said,
no, we went through with it. We've been married like 3 years, but she didn't take my name for a number of reasons, including she's an asshole. No, she's great, but she was like published a bunch. You know, she's more successful than me, so she didn't want to besmirch her career with the Savage name. So she stayed Alyssa Wolf, but
good for her. My wife did the same thing for a while. She ended up changing it. We had this funny moment that happened. So I've been married for 5 years, and my wife, like all throughout us dating, she's like, I can't wait to get rid of my last name. I'm so excited. And then like a month before we got married, I would have never cared. I actually didn't even like marriage was never an important thing to me. I was fine doing it. I was just like I guess I was like agnostic to the idea of marriage. We could do it or we could not do it. Don't care. And which is maybe not a very romantic thing to put in our vows, but
is that how you proposed? Like, listen, I don't really care, but here's a ring, maybe. What do you think?
So she told me, though, like the whole time, if she would have said, I don't want to change my name, it wouldn't have stopped me from wanting to marry her. I wouldn't have cared at all. And then about a month before we got married, she goes, I don't think that I want to change my last name. And I had like an actual reaction to it, like which was surprising to me because I was like, I felt a little bit betrayed. And then and then I got over it. I had like a real, I had like a couple conversations with friends of mine, got over it. Wasn't a problem. And then like 3 years later, my wife, I grabbed the mail and she's like, oh, you grabbed the mail? I guess you already know. And I was like, what? And she had changed her name to my last name, and I was like, oh, I didn't care. I still didn't care. Like, I didn't even notice that it had a different name on the envelope.
Yeah.
Because she did it as like this big surprise to me. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, let her keep her name. Who cares?
Well, that's nice. Well, I think that like the cooler name should win. Like, I don't think it should be man or woman.
You guys are both pretty
But-
good names, though.
Yeah, we have Savage and Wolf. So I want to
that actually is not a bad hyphen. Yeah. That's
Although I think it should traditionally be Wolf Savage, but I like Savage Wolf better.
much better.
So I'm sure the kids will be at least like casually referred to if they come as like Savage Wolves.
That's great.
But like my sister gave up Savage for Friedman. I'm like, Friedman's like the Smith of like, you know, the Jewish world. Like, you basically like, he should have taken Savage.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? Like, like everybody's a Friedman. Come on, man.
So did you? So in the episodes of your podcast that I listened to, she had not yet contracted COVID-19. Has she
Yeah.
contracted
She never
it
got
at this
sick.
point? That's great. Do you think that? Maybe she's just an asymptomatic person, or do you think that you guys were incredibly careful and she never got it?
No. We were not careful at all. We live in a tiny apartment. Like, it was impossible to like do that. So, you know, I think that there are in the population a ton of people who have been exposed, have you know, it's like herpes, okay? All these people roll around, all these cocky bros, and they're like, I don't have it. It's like, you probably do have it. You probably just don't have symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how many viruses work. So I think, like, you know, and I have no fucking idea. I'm not like a doctor, but those are the people that we know are spreading it, are like, they feel fine.
Yeah.
And in one hand, that's kind of encouraging because, you know, like I was talking to somebody the other day and I'm like, it's called novel corona because it has not been in humans yet.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's why. And I'm like, I can't talk to you. You're an idiot. But like, once it goes through everybody once, we're going to have some sort of antibody to it, like as a population.
Mm-hmm.
So that's encouraging, I think.
Yeah, I think people really don't understand, and I mean, it doesn't take a lot of searching on social media to see that people don't understand why we're doing the like sheltering in place stuff, because it's not like it's gonna go away and we're gonna avoid the human population getting it. We're just trying to slow the increase, basically, so that it's manageable for the hospitals and that it buys our medical system time to create like I've been using this word a lot, efficacious
wow,
treatment.
nice word.
I know,
Good
it's
word.
pretty good. Yeah, so I think people don't understand that like what they're doing isn't avoiding it. We're gonna get herd immunity through all of us getting it, but hopefully your grandma gets it when they have a treatment for it, instead of now when they're just like, I don't know, put her on one of these ventilators, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing that comes to mind is like, I believe New Zealand did a really good job of just like shutting down the whole country, and they may have actually avoided the curve altogether in some respects. But the other thing is like, I hate the misunderstanding of diseases in general. Like, Chris Cuomo was on air and he's like, you know what's really helped? The virus wants me to lay down, but you know what? I get up and I'm like, a virus is like actually not even alive. It's like less alive than a piece of bacteria. Like, viruses are like this weird thing that we don't even like. They're not alive. Like, bacteria is alive.
Mm-hmm.
A virus is this weird like alien thing that's like kind of dormant and then it gets in you, and like, I just hate that shit. So what? The people who died didn't try hard enough, Chris? Like, I don't get the logic of that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's really like this whole thing is, I think, a test of American values, because I'm also like, I am empathetic to the people who are like, part of human liberty is being able to leave your house. And I know liberals and conservatives alike who are like, we need, like, they're like, China did a great job. They welded doors shut. And I'm like, you want your fucking door welded shut? Like, you, the guy who like can't even listen to someone talk about reasonable gun rights, want your fucking door welded shut? Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's funny. Like, everybody has their own little carve out of like what's okay for them. Like, like when I go on my run, I like basically just zigzag all around the village, like to the streets where there's nobody. So if I see people, I just go the other way or whatever. Even though like I'm probably fine, I'm just trying to like do the right thing.
Yeah.
But these people will like wear a mask, they'll like yell at you for whatever, and then they'll just run right by you like a foot away, and there's a huge amount of room. Yeah. And even our dumb mayor is like, he's having his little minions like drive him to the park in Brooklyn so we can walk around instead of just like being in the yard in Gracie Mansion. And when they asked him about it, he was just like, let's not focus on that. That shouldn't be what we focus on.
Yeah, so, it's really opened up this like new category of shame. That we can like shame our neighbor. I downloaded the Nextdoor app, which is probably never a good idea. But I like 30% of my neighborhood's Nextdoor app is like, I saw this person out without a mask, this person and it's like, oh man, we've just turned this into like the new it's like the new purity test is how seriously you're taking coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a problem with that. I'm more on the side of the shamers, but like I tried to run with a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Like the mask is to protect you if I'm wearing it, right? It's not to protect me. But ostensibly I've already had it. I'm not passing it to anybody. I'm not contagious anymore. That's what we think, right?
Yeah.
Like that was true as of weeks ago. So I was like, all right, I probably don't need to wear a mask, but I'll wear one anyway to like show that I'm wearing a mask because I don't want people to look at me and be like, that guy's a dick.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a mask out of like my spandex shorts and I pulled them over my mouth and I was just like suffocating myself while I ran. I made it like 2 blocks. I was like, all right, I'm not doing it. Like I'm only outside for 20 minutes. I just can't do it. So,
I also suspect we're not at the level of understanding of this where if you were like, oh no, it's fine, I tested positive, people are going to be like, oh, that's okay. They're going to be like, you're a pariah. Get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, well, I went to go, because I'm a hero, I went to go pack homeless food, like food for homeless people. So the experience was super weird. It's a church like right over here. I did through New York Cares. And I was like under the understanding we were all going to wear gloves and masks. And like we walk in the church, we go in the basement. I'm like bandanaed up. Like I made a bandana out of a t-shirt. And I walk in and there's just like a bunch of people in their 50s just clumped up, no mask, just hanging out, like absolutely no safety. And then while we're packing with gloves, this woman is like typing on her phone. And I was like, the first thing they told us was like, don't be on your phone because that is the dirtiest thing in the world. So I was like, you can't be on your phone. Like you need new gloves. And she like glared at me. So it's like, you can't win. I'm like, dude, we're trying to hand out food to like 500 homeless people. Don't be on your phone. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's so wild. I think that's it's just like, I don't know how you can be uncurious about this, I guess is ultimately where I'm at. Like I spend my entire day now just like reviewing the data and looking at like the most recent studies and estimations and like the guidelines are changing and we should be changing our expectations with the guidelines. For now, like I don't know, none of us are almost none of us. Maybe you're an epidemiologist, but I'm not an epidemiologist. So like I'm just gonna trust the scientists and do whatever they say is right, even if they're lying to me. For now, I feel like the best process for me is to not trust some asshole on the internet. Or on social media. It's I even had to you know what I shamed my mom out of is she posted one of those memes. My mom is like she's like fertile ground for Russian bot propaganda, and she posted one of those memes that was like, if you drink hot tea with lemon in it, that'll kill the virus.
Pushes it down. Yeah,
and I was like, oh no, you're like, you can't post this because you're in the age range where like all of your friends are risk factors. Like they're all in the risk category by just age alone, let alone, the like, what is it, comorbidities or pre-existing conditions. Yeah, so I shamed her out of it and made her delete it off of her social media, which feels bad. And then like 3 weeks later, my only contact with her is looking at her through the storm door of our house, so she doesn't even get the like the like return to affection.
Yeah, well, what I don't get is these people that are complaining. Here's my hierarchy of who can complain, okay? If you have kids at home, you can complain. Mm-hmm. That's number one. If you live in a tiny apartment and you have kids at home, you can really complain.
Yeah.
But I have friends with these giant houses and yards, and I'm like in a tiny bed, apartment that I didn't leave for 12 days. And they're like, they got a half-court basketball hoop. I'm like, wait, so your job is making you stay home and shoot hoops all day? Like, shut up. Like, how boring are you? They're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you never heard of a Saturday before? Like, what the hell's wrong with these people? Like, that kind of annoys me. I'm like, you're not in the epicenter. You're just out in the burbs, like, chilling.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We had down the street from me, we had so I actually lived, I don't know how well you know Washington State geography, but I actually live in Tacoma, which is like the cheaper version of Seattle. It's like the next bigger city as you get away from Seattle. And so my neighborhood's a little more spread out than Seattle proper, but there's a restaurant like a block away from me, and there's a parking lot, and people set up like 8 lawn chairs, and we're having like a block party and drinking out there. And I'm like, this is so, you have a house. Like, how can you not go a month without this? Like, you have to build a bonfire in a fucking parking lot, and I'm sure they got. I'm sure that the police came and intervened at some point, but yeah, it's a. I have an 8-month-old daughter, and I will tell you, like, I feel so lucky that I have this time while she's like fun, because before 6 months they're just garbage. Kids suck before 6 months, and so I'm in the perfect, I think, window, because it's post blob, where she's got no personality and doesn't interact with you at all, and it's before she starts talking, because that would be fucking miserable.
Yeah, well, my sister lives in Brooklyn, and she's got a 2-bedroom and a 4-year-old girl and a like 1.5-year-old boy. But what's funny is, like, she isn't probably having the time of her life, but my niece, who's 4, is like the happiest she's ever been. She's like, wee, no school, I get to watch cartoon, like, literally beyond thrilled. And it's just so funny how, like, you know, there are these little slivers of like positivity where it's like, oh, I have to stay home with my daughter, like, all right, like, it's all right.
Yeah, I got laid off from my job, which is it's fine though. I mean, it's thank you. Everybody says that, but like literally with the stimulus and the extra, with unemployment plus the extra unemployment plus the stimulus check through July 31st, my wife and I will lose $0 as a result of that. Like, what feel however you want about it, and I actually think that it was kind of shitty that only like a couple $100 billion of the 2.2 trillion are going to the people. But like, as far as right now goes, we're going to be fine. We're going to be just as well off as we would have been. And I get this like time off where I don't have to feel guilty about like my daughter's crying downstairs and I'm trying to focus on work. I just get to spend a whole bunch of time with my daughter. That is great. So yeah, like you said, it's great. My daughter's loving it. We love it. In some ways it actually, like, we live on the most busy street in our city, where there's, you know, dozens of restaurants, and normally we would have been spending hundreds of dollars a month eating at restaurants, and now we're eating at home. We don't have to pay for daycare during this time. There's a lot of things. We're going to be fine. And truly, like, I've become boring enough that outside of comedy, I don't really spend a lot of time away from my house without my wife. So like, we're just basically doing what we would do. It's, you know, we're home a little more, and we can't have my mom over or her parents over, which sucks. But other than that, it's like, we're not doing too bad. You live in New York. I love New York. I can't imagine. We feel like this. We bought our house specifically because of the neighborhood it was in, because it's like a fun area to be. And I can't imagine New York without all of the fun stuff in New York.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Like, there's a hotel right on our block, and one of the like creepiest things was, we go outside, there's like a big deadbolt. They've boarded up like inside of it. It's closed. There's just like restaurant on restaurant that is completely shut down. Like the CVS on our corner, they let you in one at a time. You've got to, like, you know, only a certain number of people can even be in the store. And yeah, like, that is obviously the draw. Like, you're like, you know, when I was packing food, this lady was like, yeah, I'm a lawyer, I'm from Texas, but I just love like the theater, that's why I moved to New York. And she's like, this sucks. And you know, you add to that like the most bizarre thing, and it's like might not be the exact case in Tacoma, is that you're like, my day-to-day is I'm getting up like late, I'm eating a lot, I'm doing some podcasting, and then I like start drinking at 5, and I basically chill and like watch movies with my wife. That's not a bad day. But then every morning we hear Cuomo, and there's 700 people dead. Yeah. And like, we know the reality. And I've offered, you know, I volunteered for every blood study. I've called people who are in medicine and been like, what else can I do? Can I go out and like build shit? Because I've already got the immunity, whatever. They're like, stay in your house. So for proactive people, you're like, God, I want to do something. Yeah. And they're like, just get out of our way, please. Like, like, go away. So it's this weird, like, you know, and you feel it too, but it's like, especially in New York, I go for my run, I'm running by a truck that's for bodies. It's a block from my house. You know, it's just so surreal. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, I guess I'll drink some wine again. What else, you know, what else can I do?
Yeah, I had reached a point where I was drinking like 2 drinks a week. Not like even out of like, I'm not wasn't trying to cut back. It's like Trying to be a dad and do stand-up is difficult, and have a full-time job. Like, it's difficult. It's a lot of work.
What was your job, by the way? Or do you not want to say?
No, it's fine. I was like a data analyst for a company.
Mm-hmm.
So like I could have worked from home, but it's a company that relies on retail sales, and so you can only pay someone so much to say you're not going to sell anything.
It's down.
Yeah, it's going to be down by a lot. So
I like when it's up.
It was funny because the like president of the company is a professional mentor of mine, and he called me the day that I got laid off, and I was like, I guess I should have been more optimistic about my projections, because maybe I would still have a job. Like, we were joking around about it. Yeah, once again, like I'll be fine, and there's plenty of those jobs around, so I'll be fine. Here's my thing, I'm not the canary in the coal mine. A lot of people will hurt before it sucks for us to the point that you would worry about us. Yeah. I'm actually curious because I've wanted to do, when I went to college, I went for business as like a backup, and then journalism and broadcasting. And I wanted to do like exactly what you do, basically, and I actually always wanted to do stand-up, and then I ended up, broadcasting is so difficult to break into. And I'll
tell you the story too. I think that's where you're going, but I'll let you ask your question. But I'll tell you my break-in story.
Well, yeah, tell me that, because I have a different question, I think, than you would have expected.
I don't know. Go ahead with your question then.
My question is this: you do stand-up and you do broadcasting, and I've always been worried about my job finding out that I do stand-up, and then they watch the content and they're like, this is why it was important for me to see a clip of yours. Because it's not like you were, you weren't Andrew Schultz. You weren't like trying to cross lines, but you weren't censoring yourself. You weren't doing like PG family comedy. Do you worry about that stuff?
Well, I have a day job too, and
in addition to broadcasting.
Yeah, in addition to that, I do outside sales. So for now, we're okay, but we're basically getting paid to like sit at home and like do exercises about our customers, where our job is literally face-to-face sales. So I'm always worried about them finding out, and I think every comic who still has a day job is worried. You're worried double, because number one, they're like, what if they see you saying shit on stage, and they go, you're fired. But then there's also the like, now some dick at the office is going to walk up to you and be like, tell me a joke. You're like, kill yourself.
Yeah.
But so what I do, because I had the broadcasting, when I get a day job, I just submit it to HR like, hey, I do comedy and broadcasting. Occasionally I get paid. It's not my full-time job. So that way they like kind of are aware of it. But with ESPN, part of the reason I got the opportunity was I was like, look, I played in college. I've been doing broadcasting for like 8 years at the time I got the ESPN audition. And, I do stand-up. So I think as long as it's like, if I post a video or you post a video, it's like 2020. This is me in a comedy club. And you click on it and you watch it and I say a bad word. Yeah. That's in context. That's fine. As long as I don't say a bad word while I'm doing a game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I had so the company that I now no longer work for, still a good relationship with them, by the way, and I'm on the standby thing, so I'm supposed to come back, so I'm not going to trash them in any way. But they found out, a bunch of people on my team found out I did stand-up because we went on a business trip and I got booked at the local club. Like, I found out when it was going to be, and I was like, listen, I'm not going to be at any of these. We were like gone for 6 days. I'm like, I can go to dinner like the first 2 nights, and then after that, I'm going to this club and performing. And I don't have anything, I don't have it super easy to find stand-up clips of mine for people. Go to my YouTube channel though if you
well I don't either, because I don't want to like burn that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I send you a 20-minute tape, that's like half of it. Yeah. So I can't just like have it up there and then they're like, oh, this is it, okay.
So, but I've put like a couple bits up, and they've been like, oh, I want to see. And what I realized pretty quickly is they don't want to see me. They don't want to see if I'm funny. They want me to be bad.
Oh, really? See, I have some of that. I do a bar show monthly with my wife that a lot of times it's people from her office, it's people I work with, or people who work at other companies that I just know. And I feel like that's like our anchor show that like we're always doing. And they have gone past they now have admitted I'm funny. They like the stuff. They're great. And now all they say is like, I want something new.
Oh yeah.
So I'll come up with like 7 new minutes every month or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, yeah, there's some new stuff in there. I'm like, well, you want a new 20 every month? Like,
yeah.
So sometimes I try that, and it's just like eating shit in front of people I know, which is a whole nother type of pain too, you know?
Yeah, well, that's so frustrating because I'll do like a 30-minute set, and it's like my local club is like very generous, and they allow I can get a decent sized comp list, so I'll get some people that are like, oh, we haven't seen you in a long time, we want to come see you, and then they come and it's like, they saw me 6 months ago and I have 10 new minutes that are in the act, and it's like, yeah man, because it's hard. Like,
yeah, but guess what? This is I've like crested to the point of I don't give a shit anymore. Like I'll tell somebody like I don't want any notes, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like the people who really get it the hardest are like, man, that was funny as hell, man. That was great. That's like what a normal person will do, right?
Yeah.
The type of person who's like, it was okay, like shut up.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it.
I had a friend of mine who I was like trying to get. I want to get this like kind of video project of some specific kid-related material recorded, so I don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
And I was like, hey, can you watch this and give me? He does like video stuff and audio production for a living, and so I was like, I think I'm pretty good at most of this stuff. Can you watch this and give me some pointers on like framing the shot and all this stuff? And he goes, he watches it, and his first note is, if you looked up at the camera, even though you wouldn't be looking at the audience, you'd look a lot more confident. And I was like, oh no, I didn't want any notes on performance at all. I just want you to look at the video elements and tell me what you think about the video elements. And he goes, oh, okay, that's fine. Also, you say this word a lot. And I was like, you didn't fucking listen. I don't want your notes on performance at all. I don't want any non-stand-up to give me notes on performance.
I'll tell you what's the best note I ever got, right? When I was first dating Alyssa, my wife, I was doing a ton of open mics that were like anywhere from 2 minutes to like 4. Mm-hmm. To like, a long open mic is like 5 minutes. So if I wanted to be quote unquote productive in my mind, I'm going to race through material because I want to get to like 3 ideas in like 2 minutes. So then when I get on an actual show, I would be racing and I would be stepping all over laughs. And she'd be like, shut up. Mm-hmm. Say the funny part and stop talking. And it was literally like the most, and she was like, and slow down because you're good and the audience hasn't even laughed yet and you're like on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, oh my God, that I've been doing the wrong thing for like, 3.5, 4 years.
I've had that described to me because in Seattle, it's kind of like New York, where most of the open mics are like mostly comics in attendance. That's how I understand them to be. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I've only done one show in New York. I did a beauty bar
nice,
which was fun. It was on a Sunday though, and it was like mostly comics. Good thing is comics that stayed in the room and like paid attention, which is better than not. It's not what you normally would expect. It wasn't an open mic. It was like a showcase. But it's actually the dude that hosted it. It was like a real. I was like, I would say I probably did like third best out of 8 people on the show. Which
was
is
it like Nate Fridson?
Say it again.
Back then, Nate Fridson, was it some like Detroit guys?
Oh no,
Adam Sokol, Nate Fridson. No,
there was a Detroit guy there though, Chris something maybe. But the guy that hosted it was Jeff Arcuri, who like a week later, I was like, oh man, he was so good. That's amazing that like this guy that's hosting this kind of like crappy showcase is like so good. New York is so competitive. And then I was like, oh, he did Colbert like a week and a half later, and I was like, oh great, okay, that makes sense.
Dude. So here's how, and like I'm not trying to sound like a New York douche, but like New York is so nuts because like I got free tickets and I went to see Amy Schumer in the Garden, and Mark Normand was opening up for her, and I've known him for a long time. The next night, he's at Beauty Bar on that Sunday night show with me.
Yeah.
And he goes directly before me. And he does the exact same, 12 or 15 minutes, whatever it was, murdered at the Garden. He murdered at Beauty Bar. I went up directly after him. Did great. Was very happy with my set. And then the guy after me was like bombing. And he's like, well, who could follow Mark Normand? I'm like, but there was a comic in between. What kind of excuse is that? Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, well, Mark Norman was here last week, so I couldn't possibly. But that is the thing I try to describe to my friends is like, you'll do a show that's like, or like a civilian will come to a bar show and be like, wait, this is like a big deal. And I'm like, this is the hardest show to get on in the city.
Yeah.
Like there's 15 people here and there's 30 comics in the back. And, you know, sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's like, but coming from like when I did Boston a couple of times and I did like a week and I did all these shows, it was kind of fun not to know this show is really important, but this show's not. Like you have no clue. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, they're all bar shows to me. I'll just go up there and, you know, do my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. The thing about New York that's so crazy is just how I mean, you just have so many good comics there. I mean, there's so many comics that you're bound to have more good comics, right?
Yeah, and like there's the appropriate amount of like bullying and like meanness. So like I remember like doing like when I started, I did open mic at the Creek like Fridays, and I think like the lineup was it was like Michelle Wolf, Michael Che, Mark Normand, and like that was a mic.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was a little bit behind them. I was probably started a year after them, but it was like already a hierarchy of like, holy shit, like, you know, shut up. Like, you know, these guys are on stage. And if you went up with garbage, which I did a lot, you got silence. And it was like terrible.
Yeah.
And it was a bucket mic and I was dead last, you know, 6 weeks in a row. And it was like, wow, that's a pretty random selection there. Like, you know, you guys aren't rigging the bucket, are you? Like,
yeah.
But it's awesome. I mean, I could see and perform like, when I'm booked a lot, it's great. When I'm not booked a lot, I could see a lot of great comedy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very jealous. Though I will say, and I've said this on this podcast already a couple times, like in, 2 months ago, my idea of a dream comedy club is the Comedy Cellar, where it's like the audience is right on top of you. Everybody's packed in. We've gone to shows at the Comedy Cellar. And it's like, the front row, if you move one chair, the 7 chairs to the left of it also move because you're so packed in. And that's like seems so great. And now, like, I don't know what my psychology is going to be like when we come out of this, because I feel like that sounds like a petri dish now. Right.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Like how I think that people are just going to be like, I don't care. I'm going out. You know what I mean? Like that was already happening like going into this.
Right.
But I think that people are going to be like, I don't care. Give it to me. I'm young, whatever. Like, I think there's going to be a real split of like people who don't care and people who are like still, social distancing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I performed there once. I was opening for my friend Ryan Beck. Like some of my good friends are now getting passed to the Cellar, which is awesome. And he did an hour and he let me open at the Fat Black. And, like, you know how, like, Seinfeld says the room does, like, half the work?
Yeah.
It was, like, so true. I was doing the same stuff I do everywhere, just murdering. And it was, like, because they're all juiced up. Like, it's the Cellar. I'm like, it's the Cellar. This is awesome. And I was like, please, God, let me get past to the Cellar. This is, like, heaven. I love this place. So that was great.
Yeah, that's I was trying to I forgot what I was the point I was making. In Seattle, a lot of times I feel like if anyone from Seattle listens to this, I run the risk of them hating me. But there's like this thing that happens where when you just bomb at open mics constantly with good material, you build in these like saver lines, and you're also you don't get used to doing well. So like you don't let a laugh breathe. You don't learn to pause in the spot where you can get the laugh. Or like I have jokes where if you pause, like if I have enough time, maybe I'll pause and I know there's like an applause break coming in that spot if the joke went well before that. You can also like flex down a little bit where you go like, I don't have enough time in the set, so I'm not going to wait for an applause. I'm just going to move past it. And if you just get so used to bombing, first off, those saver lines suck when like the crowd loves it, and then you're like, oh, I guess that was just for me.
Yes, that's my biggest pet. I have 2 biggest pet peeves in stand-up. Okay, number 1 is when the joke is working and the set is going well, and you're like, I guess I'm having a meltdown up here. It's like, why? You're killing. Like, don't like build it so into your act that even when you're doing well, you got to use a saver.
Yeah.
And the other one is, you get the light, you do a joke, you get a big laugh or applause, and you just try to squeeze in that other joke, and then you end low. Once the light is on, get off the stage when you do well. I see it like ooh, that worked. Let me just try to squeeze in another.
Yeah,
like, dude.
I know a ton of people who like they're like such completionists that they just have to tell every part of the joke, and I'm like, genuinely most of my jokes, and I don't think my jokes are that unique. Just get off on the big laugh. You don't have to tell the last minute and a half. Just get off on the big laugh. And also, when comics say, "Oh, I got the light," the crowd doesn't even know what that means.
Yeah, somebody tweeted that like a couple months ago. They're like, the point of the light is so that the audience doesn't know. Because otherwise, they'd be like, all right, man, 2 minutes. Let's go into your closer now. And you'd be like, okay, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. I think I started just working at a club like barking, and then I went like into the Brooklyn scene and into the mic scene, and for me, I think it was like detrimental because for a while I did get like worse.
Oh yeah.
Because you're trying to get into like if I was to talk to a new comic, I would be like, run your own room at least once a month so you give yourself stage time and book comics who are better than you, and host, and then sometimes like headline at the end, and that could be in 10 minutes. So that you give yourself real stage time in between, because there are so many open mic killers in New York that they will kill an open mic, and you'll be in the back like, I don't even know why people think that's funny. And then you put them on a real show, they bomb their asses off. And then there's people you see just not do well at open mics, and then you're like, oh my God, that's the real set? Like when you see them on a show. So
yeah,
I hear you.
I feel like I could take you well into your next engagement talking about this, like it's so nice actually to talk about comedy just like in terms of comedy, because I've just been talking about how it relates to COVID-19.
Yeah.
To just go like, oh, this is the way people are annoying. This is how comics can be annoying. It's
yeah,
really...
but you know what else I hated was when all the clubs were shutting down, and then all these people who were like, I think suck, were like, man, I had 7 shows this week. I was like, 7? You? Like, what the hell? Yeah. I had 1.
I felt very lucky that I actually had like an alarmingly light March and April, so I was worried about it because I've reached the point where maybe it's from lifestyle. I allow my lifestyle to meet my income. I never can like stop it. I've kind of like
lifestyle creep, man.
Yeah, I've become like a little bit dependent on the stand-up income, and then March and April we're gonna be pretty light, and I feel lucky. Now it's gonna creep into May and June, it looks like, but yeah, I remember that was my initial thing was like, oh, I probably only had like a couple $100 coming in March, so that'll be fine. And now I'm like, shit, it's gonna really hit my good months too. So that sucks. Anyway,
so are you doing? Are you headlining? Are you doing some feature work, or what are you doing?
Oh no, I like a road feature. So like I featured at the trip I was telling you about. I featured at the Helium in Indianapolis, and I featured at Tacoma Comedy Club and. Comedy Underground in Seattle is probably the room we're actually most known for, but I think Tacoma Comedy Club is the best club in the state.
Dude, that's awesome. I have 2 really good friends who have just like leapt into basically being full-time features, and then also like one of them was writing on a show.
Yeah. And
I'm like, damn, like they just made the leap from no day job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I feel bad for them, because it's not like, feature money is like, it's fine, but like you need it coming in. You can't be like, yo, I featured in January, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, you have to hustle a little bit. I mean, that's like obviously I have a day job and I sell merch. Otherwise, it would be like financially. I mean, it's like literally half of the money I made in 2019 was from selling T-shirts.
Sick.
But the first guy that I interviewed for this podcast is a Seattle guy that has like good credits. By the way, he's been on Comedy Central. He's been at like JFL or been at Montreal. Like I even told him on the episode, like he started about 6 months before I did, and I feel like I'm always like a year and a half behind him, no matter where. Like he's just always a little bit ahead of me, and he quit his day job on March 6th.
Oh, dude.
And I was like, finally a setback for you. Jesus, can you fucking hit a yellow light every now and then? And
like you're rooting for your friends, but you're also like, fuck you, I want to do better. I want to do a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for him, and I have some empathy for him, but also I'm laughing a little bit about it. Yeah. So is there a way, I don't want to keep you through your next thing, but do you have a way that people can support you? Obviously you have a podcast. Can you talk about your podcast?
Yeah. So it's The World According to Noah Savage. And, it's a mix of sports and pop culture. I just had two of my oh wait, I got to release that one. I had two of my broadcasting partners on. We kind of talked about the state of sports. I have my wife Alyssa Wolf on a lot. It's available everywhere podcasts are, and you can watch me on ESPN too. College basketball when that comes back, hopefully. And quick story about that. And then on Twitter, I'm Yo It's the Sav, and on Instagram, Yo It's the Sav. But I was supposed to do the America East Championship on ESPN too.
Man.
And I was emailing them, and I was like, I really think I'm too sick to do the game. And their response is like, just wait an hour. And an hour later, like, everything got canceled.
Oh, wow.
And it was so bizarre. And it was like, I'm lucky that was only the last game of the year that I missed out on. But, like, I know guys who, because of the NCAA tournament got canceled, they were like, that was a third of my, yearly income.
Yeah. Well, how much do you think
just gone?
How much do you think you've lost through stand-up? And that's kind of been the point of this, but you're like a unique case because you have this other dream job that you do, and also you add. I wanted to talk about you actually getting COVID, but how much money do you think you've lost as a result of this from broadcasting and comedy?
I mean, I've been super lucky, so like a couple thousand.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Like that's just because let's say I did baseball, it would be like many thousands, but I had already done most of my season.
Yeah,
and I had missed like 2 games at the initial part of the sickness, and then I just missed this championship game. But like every ESPN game I do is like awesome. So it's like it just sucks for everybody involved. It's like a big deal, and especially like when you do a championship game, they look at that as like, this is a big deal. It's a championship. It might be the only time like a team is on the air all year.
Yeah.
So like last year I got to fly to Boise. I did Eastern Washington against Montana, and I'll tell you how crazy sports fans are. All right, I'm from New York. I played in the Ivy League.
Yeah.
I have never heard of Eastern Washington until I started prepping for the game, okay?
Yeah.
I got so many texts that were like, I bet you're happy that Montana won, you homer. You hate Eastern Washington. You hate Montana. I was like, I could not have less of a horse between these Pacific Northwest teams, man. I swear to God. I like basketball. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to be a homer here.
That's funny. Can you tell the story about breaking into broadcasting? I stopped you at one point.
So I played at Princeton, and then I played a year overseas. And when I came back, I was basically at a Princeton game, and there was a guy there doing radio, and I was like, "There's no color guy. Like, who does color?" And he was like, "Nobody. Nobody on the road. The guy who doesn't come on the road." I'm like, "I'll do it." So the first season, I did radio on the road for free.
Yeah.
So they liked me because the other guy who did it like works for the school, but I'm much more positive than he is. So all these people were like, "Let Noah do all the games." Okay. So then that became the home games are broadcast online that are now on ESPN Plus, but it was the Ivy League network. So long story short, 8 years in, I had done like hundreds of games, and every year sent out my tape to CBS, to ESPN, to everybody, and had largely just like I would just hear like, "No thanks," like I would get the right person, and they'd be like, "No," I'm like, okay. Man. So I tracked down the guy who's the hiring dude at ESPN, and I sent him. My father-in-law actually sent him an email. Was like, "Look, I'm just trying to," because they're actually from the same town by just coincidence.
Oh wow.
So he's like, "Hey, I'm trying to help out my son-in-law. I think he's pretty good. What do you think?" He's just like innocent. And he's like, he responded back to both of us. Was like, "He's pretty good." So I waited, and I was like, "Listen, give me 5 minutes in the spring, face to face." I go up to Bristol. It's like a Sports Center commercial. You're like on the campus. It's like so bizarre. You're like, ah.
That's cool.
So I meet with him, and I go, "Look, we talk hoops for a little bit." And I'm like, "Look, I understand that every year there'll be a famous coach who wants to do TV. And there'll be an NBA guy who wants to do TV. And I played. I can do the job." I'm like, I'm a guy asking for a break. I need the break. I'm not going to come back in 5 years having played in the NBA. And I straight up just like asked for the break. I'm like, "Give me a break here."
Oh, that's cool.
And he was like, I don't know. So a week later, I got an email that's like, "Can you fly to Charlotte?" And I'm like, "All right, yeah, I'm down." So I go to Charlotte, and I have to audition. And the audition is you do a game off of TV, like with a partner.
Oh, cool.
But you act like you're there. So it's super bizarre because you're just like, "And the ACC championship game, I'm here with Noah Savage." And it's like a game that already happened.
Oh, interesting. And it's like,
yeah.
And it's it's not like, obviously it's not going out, right? So it's just the game without any, they cut the track of the announcers, and it's just you and another person.
Yeah, so
Oh,
we
that's so
have
cool.
and the guy who I auditioned with, Roy Philpott's a great ESPN broadcaster. He's the best, and he made it super like fun and easy. And I felt like I was killing it. I brought in a lot of information. I told a couple funny stories. I made fun of myself for like barely being able to dunk. Everybody was talking about Kyle Guy. It was the UNC Virginia game, and I was like, the guy I like is Ty Jerome. I love him, and I was going on and on about him. So they cut to the studio guys, and Seth Greenberg, and I had no idea. I had not watched the game. Was like, Ty Jerome is the key to this team. Blah 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 blah. And I was just like, man, I'm killing this shit. So I left that being like, if they don't like that, then that's it. I'll do Princeton games. I'll live my life. I won't be on ESPN. And they called me and they were like, you got it. We're going to give you 15 games. And it's been like awesome. I mean,
so
every
cool.
single game I do is the coolest thing ever.
That's so cool, and it's also so reminiscent of comedy because you start out in comedy, you're sending tapes to like what feels like an empty void. You're sending videos to an empty void. And then they're like, can you do this very inconvenient thing in an inconvenient amount of time that's going to make you no money? And it's, you have to. That's so interesting because that was always the thing to me that made broadcasting. It's like what stopped me from wanting to be in broadcasting is that you work so hard for so long, and then it's like you got to have. I mean, God, it's so difficult, and then you do it. Like you did it, you broke through. It's like I can remember every moment where I was like, this place is gonna ask me to feature. I emceed here, now they're gonna ask me to feature, like this is you can remember all those moments, and that's so interesting how similar it is to comedy.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, so when I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'll cut into my next meeting. It's my meeting, so who cares?
Oh, good.
But when I met Alyssa, I was, I come in, play basketball at Princeton. I do a little broadcasting, a little swagger, meeting the parents. Little do I know that Alyssa's grandfather is Bob Wolf, who's a Hall of Fame broadcaster. He like has a square at MSG.
Wow.
So literally they're like, you mean like Bob? And I'm like, who the hell is Bob? And I got to meet him several times, hang out with him. He's got like cue cards from the World Series from like the 40s, like in his apartment. He passed away a couple years ago. But the dais at his memorial was Mike Breen, Keith Olbermann, Maury Povich. These are all people he was mentors to.
Yeah.
And then my wife spoke as well, and she murdered. She killed. She was so funny. She was so great. But his son Rick Wolf is my father-in-law, and he legitimately like we were talking about how like getting notes, how annoying it is.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a broadcaster. His dad's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So he was like my personal broadcasting coach. And I think if you can find one voice to kind of like help you, it can really like. I thought I was good back then, and I was probably okay.
Yeah.
But now I think I've gotten so much better because I have one like voice that I know he's. It's like if you reach out to somebody who's doing better than you in comedy, and you're like, can you just like watch this tape? That's different than like some dickhead in your office being like, I think you look at the ground too much.
Yeah.
So I got to like give him a ton of credit, as well as my wife, like in the right way, like helping me do what I was doing well better,
Yeah, there's so many things like in broadcasting, I'm sure, and in comedy where it's like you just need to know, someone needs to show you the mechanics. Like move the fucking mic stand and your jokes. Well, there's not a book that's, I mean, maybe there's a book that says move the mic stand, but that's not like day one advice that everyone gets. And I think that I'm sure broadcasting is the same. And then to have someone, there's a podcast I've been listening to a little bit called Sheeta Stand Up 2. It's actually Matthew Broussard and his girlfriend Laura Sogar, and they he's like very accomplished, and she's like brand new open mics, and it's like you get to hear this conversation that like if I had it at that stage of comedy with a comedian as accomplished as he was, that person would just be like, you're fucking annoying me, go away. But they love each other, so he stays. Like he's like and enjoys the conversation, and he's invested in her success. And I mean, I can tell you that like having somebody that you can be like, you're not worried about them being like, I'm annoyed that you're asking me this question. That's like very beneficial.
Yeah, without a doubt, and like someone who could also be honest with you and be like, yo, that big laugh you get, that's like the hackiest thing I've ever heard. I've heard that 10 million times. Eliminate that from your act. You know, like one of my buddies came to my bar show like maybe 4 months ago, and I have a bunch of stuff about marriage right now, and then I have like this kind of observational stuff that's like, some of it I really like and I think it's very good, and some of it I'm like, that's just some filler for when I do like a long set.
Yeah.
And he like pulled me aside. He's like, all that stuff about pizza, like don't say that anymore. That is, he's like, all the marriage stuff is like really good, and then you do that other shit, and people are like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, very blunt, but okay, I appreciate that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have those people who you'll accept negative criticism from, or I guess constructive criticism, but criticism period, instead of, what's really annoying is when you hear like two comedians at the same level and they're giving each other advice. It's like, yeah, man, neither of you know. Like, I shouldn't be giving advice to people at my level because I don't know any better than they do. Right? But when it's somebody who's...
Yeah, I don't know. I think like when you start out, you make your first comedy friends because you think they're funny.
Yeah.
And then you hang out, and then certain people get certain levels of success and they kind of like pass you because it's like, how much could you say to somebody who's getting no stage time? You know,
Right.
And I've been on both sides of that, where it's kind of like, I kind of want to go sit with the people at the cellar because it's cool as hell and I don't have time for, like, and I get that. But then like you get something and all of a sudden like you're back in. And I think having the friends that like, they know you're funny whether or not you're getting credits.
Yeah.
You need that so that way you guys can talk about your material.
Yeah.
Because there's like a trust there, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
But there's nothing better than when I give a tag to a comedian and it totally eats shit. And I'm like, why'd you say that? That was a bad idea. Like, it's the best.
All right. Well, I'll let you go on that, but thank you so much for doing it. And, I'm happy that you're recovered.
Thanks,
I
man.
assumed you'd be pretty buried in podcasts right away, so I waited a little while to ask you to do it. But, yeah, man, I would love to have you on again when we're not talking about COVID-19 and we could just talk about sports because I'm a big sports guy.
Yeah, dude, you could do mine too.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I would love that.
So, tough time now for sports. But maybe in 6 months, I don't know.
Yeah. I lost your, hold on. I got to send you another link on, here. I sent it on the Zoom chat. Is that okay? All right. I heard you come in.
Yeah, now I got the
Okay,
your
cool.
God again.
Cool. Okay, so now we're recording here. So did you feel any stigma about saying it? I posted a thing in the Seattle comics thing saying like, if anyone tests positive, we all touch the same microphones. Like, it would be very helpful if any of us knew so we could track back to the lineups we were on. And then no one ever posted. I'm actually kind of skeptical that no comic in Seattle ever got it. Did you feel a stigma?
Not 99% of who, like, I have an echo in my ear, dude, and you sound like God. Can you do what you did last time?
Yeah, there we go.
That?
There we go.
Okay, that's better. So, 99% of what I got was text. Hope you're okay. Thinking about you. Heard about this. Listen to the podcast. Thanks so much. It helped clarify some stuff. And like we got like 3 or 4 like shitty responses that were like, "Why didn't you tell me you were with me on like such and such a date?" And I was like, I don't even like remember being with you. Like people were trying to do that thing to like track back, but it did sound like very accusatory. And then this like one lady who like lives in California and her son like really hasn't been in contact with me for like, I don't know, a year. Like he was in contact with some people who were in contact with me. And I was like, hey, you're like really concerned with me. It's like really sweet, but it was very much like fear-based weirdness.
Yeah.
So that's why like, I'm fine with it being out there, but it's also like I don't really owe anybody anything because in New York City we're past the point of like tracing it back and isolating. Like everybody's been in contact now. That's like the deal.
Yeah. I mean that's like it's really is like been, from my observation, seems like it's been given the same kind of stigma as herpes, where it's like, oh, you were irresponsible and you got this thing, and it's like, no, you could have just ridden the subway. Like, you guys have like a 40% positive test rate out there.
Yeah, and it's like, if you think about, we're only testing the people that have bad symptoms. Like, if you have if I hadn't had asthma and chest tightness that was like kind of worsening, they probably wouldn't have tested me.
Right.
And I'd just be sitting here thinking like, I think I had it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was people were like, well, did you get a negative test so that you can like go back out? And I was like, no, I'm not going to steal a test from somebody who needs it. and I just followed the guidelines of like staying in quarantine the appropriate amount of time past when my symptoms resolved. So, you know, there were these little pockets of like negative kind of stuff where I was like, huh, that was weird, but I guess they're just scared. So,
Yeah.
you know, try not to hold it against them like too much.
That's a very mature outlook. I don't know that I'd have the same level of compassion. All right.
No. The
thank you.
person who was a dick is off my grid forever, but I'm just trying to say the right thing. I'm literally never going to speak to them again because I was so turned off by it. But
Yeah.